This is Joy News Prime.
Hello there, good evening and welcome to the Primetime Bulletin here on Joy News on Multi TV and also on ABN TV across Europe. My name is Gifty Ando Apia, head in the bulletin tonight. As government continues to assure an imminent end to the current power rationing exercise, various sectors of the economy, including businesses and schools, are having to bear the brunt. Also tonight, Parliament demands a full list of President Mahama's cabinet ministers following accusations the constitutional limit has been breached. And the Ghana Immigration Service justifies recent repatriation of some Nigerians seeking to settle in the country, explaining they entered the country illegally. As the world throws a spotlight on female genital mutilation, many has described it as one of the most dehumanizing practices against young girls.
This is Joy News Prime. This is Joy News Prime.
Sincere apologies for that technical hitch there. Let's go into the details of the stories now. And the ongoing power rationing exercise to most people has to do with the inconvenience of not getting electricity to do the things that they have to do on a daily basis, such as ironing their clothes, getting chilled water, or watching television. For businesses, though, especially those operating on a small scale, it means losses. Etonamse tells the story of a 33-year-old Fatima, a cold store owner who's lost significant capital after 50,000 Ghana cedis worth of meat and fish went bad because she didn't have electricity for 72 hours.
Several reasons have been put forward to explain why the country is having to endure another energy crisis, which some have described as the worst ever. The reasons range from the low level of water in the Akosombo Dam, faulty generation units, as well as excessive waste of the power generated. As a result, customers of the electricity company now have to endure 24 hours straight without power.
It's a difficult situation, so educate people. They should help. As a country, I'm sure we'll pass over this header.
But many customers of the power company explain the ECG a lot of the time does not follow its own schedule. This means businesses such as Fatima's have to pay dearly if they are unable to afford to get a standby power.
Oma inform me and say be a light never go off. It be 24 hours. Say be go off no crampananka was some my information say this very 1 month near the mama. Into after this 1 month no ye ba be go 24 hours. And no ye be obi a me hu jinabia. Be first na e ba no 6 to 6 ne dia kra no with consideration tini adwuma be say no 24 hours na mu yadin.
A tearful Fatima dressed a collapse of her business following her latest loss.
Dear Mammy 10 curtains, Mammy 20 curtains, no. You know my jaiba. Into Anamono, Eguasa, Dumuso Nacheno, Dumuso Nacheno, into Anamning in I was say, ye go to go. If you say 9 ways, say, generator bet me, I found 40,000 Ghana cedis. And yes, I get to what? So I won't any bankers are Casaba, I know soon we are mobile. Yes, you money into me, beam.
Fatima may painfully dispose of her stocks which go bad. But some customers complain they end up with rotten products.
Fish, bet me up to over Bettina, Nina at it now say. Over to Nasa, over China at it night to. On so problem I will face and won't mean Casse. Say, I was watching a
Other home keepers say they have no choice but to cook just enough for a day so they don't have to worry about storage.
I say fresh fish. I say
Businesses such as a local eatery, Heavy Doom, say they also have to adopt the same strategy.
Toka crave and say entimi and say I bet him there Juman in Nana says, I bet him a kung fu fro. I did a brand that day. I use someone as I can't the bitch figure. I'm an I be intimidate I didn't be.
But Auntie B, who also operates a food joint, say not being able to store food is a major challenge for them.
I just say no. Say I be a man say anopa na makoko store. Some casper of Fanama Begua, a best semi Juman. Tiano Pano. She tell my mayor Juman, Samuel Crocafans and Beco store. I go Fanam, a bay Juma. Today be an Jumana Triaquetri. Tiame Jumana Bassa. Did do so many and acquire a hard dream, Papa.
But not all cold store operators or caterers can be trusted to discuss their rotten stock or not use them to cook for their customers, which will mean that the relevant authorities will have to monitor operators and ensure consumers don't end up with food poison from consuming food that should have ended up in the bin rather than their plates. Etonam say, Joy News.
Well, the power crisis is also taking a toll on the academic work of students, especially at the secondary school level, with senior high school students preparing for their final exams later this year. The worst affected, they are the worst affected. Rebecca Darko visited Accra Academy, where final year students are uncertain about their fate at the final exams.
It's 7:30 p.m. on the campus of Accra Academy. Ideally, the students should be in their classrooms preparing for the next day's academic work. Instead, they loiter about as there are no lights for prep. A few meters away from the school's main gate is a group of students who are busily praying. Others have relocated from the dormitories due to the heat. They have found solace under the trees on the campus. But the final year students are leaving nothing to chance. Several of them have their personal rechargeable lamps, which they use whenever the light goes off. They say the prolonged load shedding is affecting the academic work.
Sudden fluctuation of power, we've been experiencing a lot of challenges in our academic work. We are final year students, so we have to prepare a lot for our upcoming WASI examination. As a result of this frequent situation, fluctuation of power, we can't go to prep at 9. Because since last week, we only went to prep once in a week. So I purchased this lamp just because I don't want my academic work to face the consequence of the situation. It's very appalling because we can't understand what is going on in the system. This wasn't the case some years back, so we don't know why in our time this is happening.
Really affecting our studies. Currently, in a week, we go to prep once a week most of the times. We can't even iron our dresses, so as you can see, we have the cost of just learning is so high now. Batteries are so expensive. If you have your lamps, even doing your research for mock and getting ready for the WASI, so everything is so bad. It's going to affect the WASI. If care is not again this year, we'll be like this year can be the worst. Because as and now, we are this close, few days actually, about 60 days to the exams. And this is what is happening. How do you want us to get ready for this?
The assistant headmaster of Accra Academy told the news team of camera efforts were being made to address the situation, urging the school intends to raise funds to buy more generators. He suggested senior high schools be left out of the load shedding program since it's affecting the academic work of students.
We're still on power. The police has been asked to intensify community patrols to ward off miscreants who may want to take advantage of the intensified power rationing exercise to engage in criminal activity. Addressing the 46th commissioning ceremony of senior police officers at Tesano in Accra, President John Mahama advised the police administration to collaborate with the Electricity Company of Ghana to identify neighborhoods scheduled to go off, so the patrol teams will pay more attention to them.
The graduate parade was made up of 125 officers commissioned to take up management positions in the police service as Assistant Superintendent of Police. President John Mahama urged them to uphold the tenets of human rights and be mindful of democratic policing.
Effectively put to good use. Lessons such as practical police duties, client care, crisis and conflict management, human rights, law of evidence, criminal law, criminal investigation, criminal procedure, crime prevention, democratic policing, among others, were taught to you so as to put you on a better platform in policing this nation. The expectation of the Ghanaian public is for you to be proactive always in your duties and to be accountable to them and to the law. You should be the first respecter of the law and be exemplary in obeying the law as citizens.
He said whilst government is working at resolving the current energy challenges, the police should strategize on how to stop criminals from taking advantage of the situation.
Both the Asogli and Senate plans should be coming on stream soon, and while it would not completely resolve our problem, it will reduce the supply gap and reduce the volume of megawatts that we have to shed at various times, and thereby the intensity of the effect it has on us in our homes, offices, and businesses. For some social miscreants, it is during times such as this, at night, when there are no lights, that they begin. You, the police, are the ones we need in these times. Increase your visibility at night, and I'll suggest you liaise with the ECG to know the localities that may be having power load shedding, and improve your presence in these communities while the lights are out.
There were 24 females amongst the 125 who were commissioned. ASP Akrofiansa emerged the overall best cadet officer. This is the 46th cadet corps that police is churning out since its establishment in 1959.
The Ghana Immigration Service has justified the recent repatriation of some Nigerian nationals who had migrated to Ghana with intention to settle. The repatriation has been questioned on the grounds that as West African nationals, ECOWAS protocols permit them to freely move across the borders in the sub-region. The service, however, says the group's migration was unlawful.
The 49, including 6 men, 18 women and 24 children, who described themselves as Fulanis from Oyo State in Nigeria, were repatriated by road on Tuesday, February 3. They were arrested on Friday, January 30, at Bandai in northern Volta, traveling with a lot of personal effects, including utensils, beds and furniture. Though the Ghana Immigration Service agrees that as ECOWAS nationals with the right to free movement for days without visas, it says they held no travel documentation and entered the country through an unapproved route.
Once you are arrested and it turns out that you did not use the legitimate entry point and you also do not have a travel document, there's no other option but to send you back. So it was on that basis that we had these Nigerians repatriated. They used the, the northern Volta unapproved route. There are quite a number of unapproved routes along our frontiers. Mind you, the country's boundaries extend to a little over 200,000 square kilometers. That's an extensive boundary.
There have been fears the repatriation could spark retaliatory action by the Nigerian authorities. Analysts have, however, downplayed that concern.
People are even still, saying that we should leave Nigeria alone for them bringing their billboards of their elections, which is next week. So I don't think anything has changed, and I don't think there'll be retaliation. That there will be a repeat of 1983 when they deported Ghanaians and they were, to and fro. I don't think that's going to happen. It calls into question the necessity of education. A lot more work needs to be done by ECOWAS on what being an ECOWAS citizen means and entering a country.
The Immigration Service insists ECOWAS nationals can only enter the country using the 42 approved borders and proper documentation. Border residents are, however, exempted from the strict immigration checks.
You have communities that interact, who live along the borders. Those communities do not care about that invisible line. They would cross to interact. So room is made for such people. We call them border residents. And border residents are accommodated when it comes to crossing the borders. While we do not request or insist on them producing passports, we also have over time profiled the border resident. So we can tell who a border resident is merely by him moving towards us, and we can tell.
ACOI Pamdeti concedes it is a challenge keeping an eye on all foreigners in the country, especially those who have overstayed. He, however, says both their enforcement and intelligence units are always alert to identify illegal foreigners who break the law and have them removed from the country.
The 2012 presidential candidate of the CPP, Dr. Osei Asare, is asking government to properly map out a long-term strategy to address the current energy crisis and avoid giving unrealistic timelines. He says the current crisis is as a result of the failure by successive governments to plan for the future power needs of the country, a challenge which he says does not have short-term solutions.
Dr. Osei Asare bemoaned the inability of leadership to plan adequately over time to generate power for the country, resulting in the crisis.
When we had independence, there were all kinds of bogus claims that we were engaging in ambitious white elephant projects by investing in Akosombo, which we were only going to use 10% of the energy. And these were, megalomaniac, egomaniac projects. But now, the chickens have come home to roost. What has happened? Over the last 60 years, we have depended on that sole source of energy without any real forward planning that anticipated our further needs to come in at the right time and take over to carry us through in terms of our energy needs. So we have a crisis, and you don't just wake up one day and fix energy.
Although the 2012 presidential candidate of the CPP believes the energy situation cannot be solved in the shortest possible time, he says government could impress on Nigeria to provide the country with a lot more gas.
We have the pipeline collected from Nigeria. I think we have to go now to the next level of diplomacy to ensure that we send a substantive delegation there. It's not a question of just sending the energy minister. I think we have to go there in full force to impress upon them the urgency and the immediacy of the need to have the gas flows increased significantly to immediately offset some of the demands.
Touching on the privatization of ECG, Dr. Osei Asare advised government to weigh the pros and cons of going down that path.
Whenever you mention privatization, you have to bear in mind that there is a public good element in many essential services. So it can't be a wholesale privatization, and it has to take into account the ability of people to pay, unless you're saying that it is okay for thousands of people to be without electricity as long as the few who can afford it can pay for it. I think those are issues that we will have to take into consideration.
He says the country could gain some respite if the gas quickly comes on stream, and called for a definite timeline for the commissioning of the Ghana Gas Project. Abigail Adamakunchi for Joy News.
You're watching the Primetime Bulletin here on Joy News on Multi TV and also on ABN TV. We will be telling you what Parliament is saying about President Mahama's cabinet when we return after the short break. Please stay with us. You're welcome back and many thanks for staying. Now, President John Mahama has been accused of breaching the constitutional limit for the number of cabinet ministers allowed, whilst the Constitution states in Article 76 that the highest number of ministers in any cabinet should not exceed 19. The official parliamentary report of February 3 puts the number at 20. The issue led to a debate on the floor of Parliament, requiring the Speaker to direct that the presidency furnish the House with a list of cabinet ministers. Elton John Brobley has more.
Kurima Ibrahim hails from the Upper West region. She got to know she was a victim of female genital mutilation at age 15 whilst in secondary school.
The Constitution in Article 76 states that the number of people that can be appointed to serve as cabinet ministers should not be less than 10 and not more than 19. The February 3rd report, however, suggests the appointment of the Minister of Power breached that limit. The current list, according to the report, includes the Minister for Finance, Foreign Affairs, Defense, Trade, Education, Agriculture, Transport, Health, Petroleum, Attorney General, Local Government, Water Resources, Works and Housing, Interior, Environment, Lands, Roads, Gender, Employment, Communication, and the latest addition, the Power Minister. MP for Efutu in the Central Region, Alexander Kwame Afenyomakem, who first raised the issue, said the President will be in violation of the 1992 Constitution if the number is indeed more than what is allowed. The absence of official communication from the Presidency, however, made it difficult for the House to resolve the issue. The minority leader, Osei Asare, therefore demanded the House be told the number of ministers with cabinet status.
Who is in, who is out? Or the 20-member cabinet that we have, who is in, who is out? You should tell us. Who is in? Bring the matter to a closure, since you are relating to your vast experience in cabinet.
Speaker of Parliament Edward Doe Ajaho, in his ruling on the matter, first attributed it to what he described as an error by the Hansa Department, but later said the House will have to wait till Tuesday for formal communication from the Presidency.
I just made a statement that I have not received any official communication on this matter. They need to probe where they got their information from. Maybe an information have come which I have not seen. So on Tuesday, this matter will be resolved.
Meanwhile, the House today called for implementation of laws to deal with perpetrators of female genital mutilation. It is estimated that between 100 and 140 million African women have undergone female genital mutilation, and a further 3 million girls are estimated to be at risk of the practice. Deputy Gender, Children and Social Protection Minister Dela Soa, who read a statement on the floor, said despite sustained effort to end the practice, it is still prevalent in the Upper East and Upper West regions. She indicated the ministry will continue to fight to end FGM in Ghana through education and advocacy. Sitting continues next Tuesday.
Away from Parliament, health professionals and activists around the world today threw the spotlight on one of the most dehumanizing practices against young girls across the world, female genital mutilation. It involves the severing of the most sensitive part of the female sexual organ. Here at Joy News Prime, we bring you the story of a victim who's having to live with the trauma of that experience.
Kurima Ibrahim hails from the Upper West region. She got to know she was a victim of female genital mutilation at age 15 whilst in secondary school.
Before I discovered I was a victim, life was normal to me. But after which I got to realize I was a half woman and all that. I happen to be the sad type, emotion and all that. I tend not to be happy with human beings because I think they are wicked. So I went home to ask my mom that why did you let them to cut my clitoris? Well, you know very well that when I grow, it will go a long way to hurt me. She said, oh, I should better shut up because they've done it to her, they've done it to my sister, they've done it to almost everybody. So I'm not the first person that they've cut, and I'm not going to be the last person that they'll be cut.
At age 25, she shares how difficult it has been for her to enjoy intimacy with the 4 men she has known.
The thing is, as every human being, body not be firewood. I've gone out with 4 guys. I broke up with them because of this whole thing, because they think I cannot satisfy them. One was honest enough to tell me, like, I'm fine, you are pretty, but the thing is, whenever we're making love, you just like a piece of food. There are times you feel like, oh, this, I'll also do this, but the problem starts when the guy just penetrates. It's like the pains is more or less like they putting a cut on you. Outside there, you might think the cut, the scar is dead, but inside it never dies. That's how your clitoris look. There's nothing like orgasm or something. No, you can never get it.
In her attempt to educate and fight this deep-rooted cultural practice within her community, Karima faces rejection from her family and has now fled to Accra as her life is now being threatened.
They are the roots. I have to go and educate them. But anytime I go there, I come back with problems. The first time I went there, I was being beaten and all that. The second time, this spiritual thing, they made my leg to swollen and all that. But that never stopped me from going. I still keep going. And I make sure they will have to understand me very well till I stop. When they put their knives and blades down, I better also stop talking.
Women's health right advocate Dr. Pearl Aluti addresses the health implications of this practice and asks stakeholders to intensify the fight against the practice.
Clitoris it compares with the penis in a man, the tip of the penis, and it has a lot of nerve endings, so it makes it very sensitive, and that is what basically makes a woman enjoy the act of intimacy with a man. So if it is cut off and thrown away, sometimes this cutting is so intense, the scarification is so bad that it causes so many complications during childbirth. These women end up with tears, with a lot of bleeding, and some even bleed to death.
Matilda Homaga for Joy News, Accra.
Throwing the spotlight on FGM. One of the promised President Mahama Community Day Senior High Schools being constructed in Volo in the Northong district is only 5% completed. Work was at the footing level when Joy News visited the site. This spells out the unlikelihood of completion of the project on the scheduled August 2015. Fred Kwame Asare has more.
Foundation works of the 4-story facility have been completed, while filling and reinforcement of the beams and pillars are ongoing. The school, when completed, will have 24 classrooms, 3 laboratories, 2 libraries, offices for heads of departments, state-of-the-art administration block, an internet facility, modern sports arena, among other facilities. It is likely construction works on this edifice would not be completed on the scheduled date of August 2015. The Jonas Company Limited is a construction firm undertaking the project with procurement and project management consultancy (PPMC) as a consultant. The contractor, Johnson & Abba, who refused to speak on camera, confirmed they are a little behind schedule, adding that it was due to the winds and the muddy nature of the site. He said his firm would not compromise on standards but committed to using the right and quality materials to build the facility. The project is one of the 7 community-based senior high schools allocated to the Volta region out of the 50 to be constructed across the country. The building of these community-based senior high schools is in fulfillment of President Mahama's campaign promise he made to Ghanaians in 2012 to build 200 new community-based senior high schools. It is also to help ease pressure on schools across the country and to enable more JHS graduates get access to secondary education. Fred Kwame Asare's report from the Volta region.
Still to come in business after the break, Ghana's local poultry farmers insist they are capable of producing enough to feed the entire country. They've given some preference over imported poultry, and traders at Accra Central Business District vowed to resist imposition of signage fees by city authorities. And up next is business news.
week on Ice Ride, a tussle between a school and the former student over transcripts.
When I went into the office, the first thing that she said was she doesn't have any issue with me, she doesn't want to see me, and doesn't even recognize me as a student of the school.
School authorities of the Keta Senior High School will not speak on record. Cyril's father maintains his son has been unjustly dealt with by the school.
In fact, I was very sorry to hear this from the woman. I stood there for some time and I didn't know what to do again.
This week, we explore school authority-student relationships as we focus on Cyril. To what extent are you entitled to your academic document? We speak to the legal experts. Showing this and every Saturday at 7 p.m. with a repeat broadcast on Mondays at 7 p.m.
And here is where we get you updated in business. I'm Abigail Poultry. We talk about the poultry industry, and Ghana's poultry farmers have consistently complained about how they're being driven out of business due to the unfair competition from imported products. Well, they point to the $270 million the country spent on imported poultry. They say could be saved if the local industry is encouraged to increase capacity. But are the local producers ready to take up the challenge, and can they indeed supply enough to feed all Ghanaians? I have been finding out.
From layers kept for eggs to broilers, guinea fowls and cockerels kept for their meat, the poultry sector provides a variety of birds for consumption. The love for poultry products in Ghana led to a boom in the industry some time back when local farmers produced enough to feed the populace. But times have changed and imported poultry is taking over the industry. Kwame Osei Asare is a local poultry farmer rearing over 1,000 broilers using mechanized systems.
Ghanaian farmers are ready and raring to do this in big time. Big time. Because we know that there are of the 24 million Ghanaians, if everybody is going to eat a bird a week, we are looking at at least 20 million birds a week. But believe me, Ghanaian farmers are ready to do almost all that. So long as people we know Ghanaians will buy it, we will. Now, you see, the way forward with these things, if we decide to do more, is mechanization. We know it. Once we are going to do mechanization, believe me, about 2 or 3 people can take care of about 10,000 birds without a problem.
He contends the high cost of inputs makes it difficult for businesses such as his to thrive.
If I am producing, let's say, 10,000 birds, I wouldn't need to be that greedy to put 5 cedis per bird. So I probably put a profit of about maybe 2 cedis per bird. You see, by so doing, what have I done? I've brought the prices down. Instead of a bird I'll sell for about 35 cedis, I might be selling for about 32 cedis. So basically, I'm saying production is not a problem. But if we can get inputs, for instance, if maize can be on the markets at lower prices.
Kwame Osei Asare is convinced the local industry has potential for growth if only Ghanaians will modify their preference for imported frozen chicken.
So it's quite obvious that local farmers are very ready to produce more to meet the demand of the Ghanaian populace. Now, the only challenge is that the imports of poultry products from outside is making it difficult for them to meet the market for their produce. They are only asking government to enforce the import policy on livestock. If there is no ban on import of poultry products at all, then there should be an enforcement of that policy so that they can remain in business.
Apart from the livestock import policy, a broiler revitalization project currently underway is to aid local farmers feed about 95% of consumers in the next 5 years. JFAMCO is partnering government to store the already processed 300,000 broilers under the project. However, they argue they do not have the mandate to monitor if importers are taking up the 60% of broilers from the project as required.
Just before Christmas, there were some influx of importers who came here to buy. We've been given the mandate to sell, but we don't have the authority to ask them in terms of proportion of their importation they're buying from here. So we might not necessarily have the detail of how much they're supposed to buy. But there are quite large importers who have come here to make a quite substantial amount of purchase. The exam, the highest was about 40,000 kilos, so 4,000 tons of whole broilers.
Government, however, maintains it remains poised to address the challenges of the sector.
Government at our point of entry hugely, largely subsidizes the feed that comes into this country. In fact, we've realized that people who come here day in and day out with 3-4 applications for waivers, they sell their product as though there was no form of waiver. So what we are doing now is that we are taking from them their main the main people that they supply, their main farmers that they supply to. We want to take the data. After we get that data, then we work on the quantities that they bring into the country, the quantities that go to the farmers, and then we will sit and work with them. Where does it reflect that exemption that is given to you on behalf of the Ghanaian farmer? If it doesn't work out, then we will not also give you the waiver. Pay the revenue to government. Let government use that money to support the farmer.
In spite of the numerous difficulties, Ghana's poultry industry has a potential to develop if policies regarding the sector are enforced and Ghanaians demand more of the local poultry products. Abigail Adomakwenchi for Joy News.
Away from poultry, well, there's something interesting developing at the Central Business District about signages, and traders there have vowed to resist attempts to impose signage fees on them. A number of traders and businesses in the capital are said to have been served letters demanding the payment of various sums for the signage displaying the names of their shops. City authorities justify the fee, explaining it is a form of advertising, but the traders say they will not pay, describing the policy as insensitive.
Corporate firms as well as small-scale businesses, according to the policy, are expected to pay around 55 cedis per square meter for the signage structures. The Accra Metropolitan Authority's outdoor consultant explains the fees are not as expensive as the traders are claiming.
A square meter signage, the most expensive part of a square meter signage is about 55 cedis per square meter a year. That is negligible compared to the value of a square meter of signage of exposure will bring to a business advertising itself. So it's quite strange that we've had a series of media, or AMS had a series of media bash about exorbitant charges to first-party businesses or businesses advertising themselves on their own premises.
In effect, the larger your signage, the more fees that will be demanded. But the executive director of the Advertisers Association of Ghana says the fees do not make sense considering the AMA charges business operating permit fees.
It should be the right to identify the premises. What is the essence of the business operating permit? That you have a right to do a business. And on the business operating permit, they are even indicating whether it is a kiosk, a container. So I should be able to identify where I am. It is set on identification. For you to know that this is where I am, I'm doing this business within your vicinity, this is where I'm located. And I paid for that permit to do my business. So I have a right to identify my business.
The AMA, however, insists signages are a form of advertising, and so the businesses must pay.
This is wholly untrue. The rates are fairly low for first-party businesses, and if there's an instance where their rates have gone high, it is more than likely that they haven't been paying previously. So they have a series of charges from previous years which have been brought forward to the current year.
The traders who are most likely to be affected are meanwhile outraged by the policy.
In fact, they are stretching us too much. I don't think it's just justifiable, because when we were going for the license for trading, all these things were, the permit, all these things were incorporated into it. So I see no reason why they continue taxing us up to now.
No, we cannot accept it. At least we are pleading to the government so that the government should sit down with them so that they can able to adjust a lot of things for us, so that they can able to help the situation in their country for us. Because we the importers, at least we are crying because the tax is killing us.
I'm not very pleased with it. It's not something that's supposed to do. I can't get a shop and then without a banner on the shop. How will people know the shop, the name of the shop? So they should allow us to do that. But in case we want a signpost at the roadside, for that we can pay for it. But right in front of the shop, we can't pay for it. Yeah.
Authorities at the Accra Metropolitan Assembly have meanwhile warned business owners they have until March 2015 to settle their signage fees, else it says they would lose their structures.
Well, President John Mahama says Ghana will engage Kuwait more seriously to draw its quota of the Kuwaiti Fund for African countries. He said the current Kuwaiti Fund, which gave Ghana about $47 million, was used in the construction of the Pong hydroelectric and Abuase thermal plants. The president was speaking at the Flagstaff House when two heads of diplomatic missions, including that of Namibia, called on him. Gifty Andapia has more.
The occasion was the official presentation of letters by new heads of missions representing their countries here in Ghana. First was the new Namibian ambassador to Ghana, Charles Bernard Josop, who pledged to push through all outstanding agreement between the two countries, especially trade and tourism. The new Kuwaiti ambassador to Ghana, Mohammed Hussein Mohammed Abdul Muhsin Al-Failakawi, expressed commitment to foster stronger bilateral ties between the two countries. President John Mahama noted, although Ghana has benefited from the Kuwaiti Fund, the country will appreciate more investment, particularly in the power generation sector.
There are many other areas in the health sector, in rural electrification, and so many other sectors where Kuwait has, assisted Ghana in terms of lending us money from the Kuwaiti Fund. My understanding is that we are under drawing Ghana's quota, and so we intend to engage you in a more serious manner to ensure that Ghana is fully able to benefit, from the Kuwaiti fund. We want to see more private sector Kuwaiti investments in Ghana. Kuwaiti investors who want to invest in a sub-region of potentially 350 million people can use Ghana as a platform to be able to reach the rest of the West African market. And so one of the things we would like to work with you is to bring Kuwaiti investment teams to come and see the opportunities we have, especially in the power generation sector, in the oil and gas sector, and also in the light industry and manufacturing areas, and also in agriculture.
The new Kuwaiti ambassador is the first of such to be resident in Ghana, following the establishment of the country's mission for the first time in Ghana. Gifty Andapia, Joy News, Flagstaff House.
And on that Ghana Kuwaiti note, we end the business segment. Do stay on for more news.
Keep the ones you love closer with free Facebook on Airtel. It's absolutely free. Airtel, the smartest network for your smartphone.
Time now to do some sports, and Equatorial Guinea has been fined $100,000 for the crowd trouble during Thursday's Africa Cup of Nations semi-final loss to Ghana. They have also been warned that a repeat of events at Malabo Stadium will result in the team being forced to play a game behind closed doors. However, fans will be able to attend Equatorial Guinea's third-place playoff match against DR Congo on Saturday. Equatorial Guinea must also pay for the treatment of 36 injured fans.
They throwing stone on and they'll do you like this, they'll kill you, they'll do you this, they'll do you that, which is not fair. We are here to support.
This conduct of the supporters of Equatorial Guinea, or the fans of Equatorial Guinea, is the highest state of barbarism. Instead of talking about Ghana's win, we are talking about the misbehavior of fans. So it has taken the shine away from our win.
We had to run for shelter, and that's why we broke the gate and went on the field. And
when you say you broke the gate, does that mean you forced it open, or did you?
We forced it open. The police wouldn't allow us, but we forced it open.
Football should unite us, but not to divide us. And this it's not good. Imagine now, people are in the hospital now.
They did not plan this properly, and there's no security. This is absolutely shambles.
Rather unfortunate situation there. President John Mahama is banking on the Black Stars' triumph in Sunday's Africa Cup of Nations final in Equatorial Guinea to end Ghana's decades-old trophy drought. The impressive performance by the team in their last few games has raised hopes it could indeed win the ultimate. And the Black Stars last night won the trophy in in 1982, and President Mahama is optimistic the current crop is on the verge of breaking the 33-year-old jinx in Sunday's final against the Ivorians.
After all of us had our hearts gladdened by a sterling performance by the Ghana Black Stars in Equatorial Guinea in their match against the host nation, we continue to pray and hope that the Black Stars will do us proud and for the 5th time in history bring the African Cup of Nations home.
Indeed, we all wish the Black Stars well, and when they win, we all will be happy as Ghanaians. That's it for sports.
EcoBank, we see a great future, one that's full of opportunity for those who want to be the best. With over 1,000 branches of a single bank across 33 African countries. It's a future where trade can flourish without boundaries. The future is breathtaking, with enormous cross-border investments helping business and government build new infrastructure, while individuals achieve their ambitions right across Africa. The future is Pan-African, and EcoBank is the Pan-African bank.
International news now. The Nigerian Islamist militant Boko Haram has attacked a town in Niger for the first time, witnesses have reported. The attack on the border town of Boso was the group's second on a neighboring country in as many days. Its militant reportedly killed at least 70 people in an attack on the town of Fotokol in Cameroon on Thursday. The Boko Haram insurgency has left thousands dead and displaced more than 1 million over the past 6 years. The militants control a large stretch of land in northeastern Nigeria. Yakuba Sumana Goa, the governor of the Diffa region around Boso, told the BBC that the Islamists had been successfully pushed back after clashing with Nigerian troops. Mr. Goa said the number of casualties was unknown, but he believed no civilians were harmed during the fighting. A BBC reporter said that the Boko Haram militant had attacked Boso early in the morning with heavy weapons, causing residents to flee and/or hide indoors. One resident told Agence France Press news agency, "We can hear the sound of weapons all around the town, often very near our windows. There's the noise of heavy weapons and of light arms making our houses shake." Boso lies just across the border from Nigeria's Borno State, one of the areas worst affected by Islamist violence. Thousands have rallied in Jordan's capital, Amman, in support of their government's military response to the killing of a Jordanian fighter pilot by Islamic State militants. Among those marching was Jordan's First Lady, Queen Rania, who told the BBC the country was, quote, "united in our horror." Jordan says 8 warplanes carried out dozens of airstrikes on IS targets on Thursday in response to the killing. The country's foreign minister said it was, quote, upping the ante against IS. Until now, Arab states have only been involved in a fraction of the US-led air campaign against the militants. The focus of Jordan's airstrikes is reported to be Raqqa, the IS stronghold in Syria. Local activists and IS sympathizers reported fresh strikes in the city on Friday, but these have not been confirmed by officials. On Friday morning, crowds gathered outside the capital's El Husseini Mosque after weekly prayers, waving Jordanian flags and pictures of the murdered pilot Moaz al-Qassas Bey. Some held placards that read, quote, "Yes to punishment, yes to the eradication of terrorism," the AFP news agency reported. Islamic State, Yemen's Shia Houthi rebel movement has announced it is taking over the government and dissolving parliament. In a televised statement, the group said a 5-member council would act as president for an interim period. The group took control of the capital Sana'a in September, forcing the resignation of President Abed Rabo Mansour Hadi in January. The announcement comes after the failure of UN-brokered peace talks. The Houthis set a Wednesday deadline for political parties to reach an agreement on ending the country's political turmoil, threatening to act unilaterally otherwise. Government decisions will now be dictated by revolutionary committees dominated by the rebels. Yemen has been in a political vacuum since last month, when President Hadi and his government resigned after the rebels took full control of Sana'a. And that's it for international news.
Be a part of the news, the breaking news, the developing news, the social news, and what's trending. Get connected, get interactive. Joy News Interactive, weekdays 6:30 p.m. on Joy News.
Well, before we end the news, we're just learning of a fire in the vicinity of the Kumasi Central Prisons, and we're trying to reach our correspondent on the ground for some details, but we will bring you those details in our subsequent bulletins. But that's it for the bulletin tonight. Our top stories. As government continues to assure an imminent end to the current power rationing exercise, various sectors of the economy, including businesses and schools, are having to bear the brunt. Parliament demands full list of President Mahama's cabinet ministers following accusations the constitutional limit has been breached. The Ghana Immigration Service is justifying the recent repatriation of some Nigerians seeking to settle in the country. They explain that they entered the country illegally. As the world throws a spotlight on female genital mutilation, many has described it as one of the most dehumanizing practices against young girls. The Ghana's local poultry farmers insist that they are capable of producing enough to feed the entire country if given some preference over imported poultry. There's more news at myjoyonline.com and multitvworld.com. My name is Gifty Andopia. Many thanks for your time. Do stay on for PM Express with Nana Sakal.
This is Joy News Prime.